Business Express, brought to you by InterSwitch. Transaction solutions you can depend on.
Love music and love life. You're welcome to Business Express on Smooth 98.1. My name is Oluwaseun. Business Express is what you listen to as a part of the Smooth Breakfast weekdays from 6:30 a.m. And today we will be talking about pensions because if you do have pension, you can be sure that your future self is grateful for not leaving you to chance because you're taking important steps towards securing a financially stress-free retirement with the power of pensions and also not setting yourself up for financial dependence or being at the mercy of others around you. But now let's touch on the latest news that we have on pensions. It's that Nigeria is preparing to revise its pension investment regulations in order to allow a greater share of the country's $17 billion pension asset to be allocated to infrastructure and private equity. What does that mean? What are the implications for you who is being intentional about your future? We'll get into that really shortly. And joining us this morning to discuss this is an entrepreneur, an economic analyst, as well as the founder of Nourish Box. Welcome with me, Gbemi Alonge. Good morning.
Hi, Sean. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Welcome back again. Good to have you. And let's dive right into why pensions are important.
Pensions are important, like you said, for individuals. It helps you basically save towards your future. When you stop working, when you're not actively earning an income from a job, you have something to fall back on. You have something to rely on. You're basically throwing money to your future self, to keep you and sustain you in the future. Now, that's why it's important to individuals. It's also important to the country because the pool of funds that are available from pensions from everyone. Like you said, Nigeria has about $17 billion in its pension pool, essentially. And that's a lot of money that's available for the government, available for investment in different organizations. And it just helps to boost the GDP or basically induce growth in the country. So it's important for individuals and also important for the country as a whole.
Okay, then in the player, or rather in the sector, we have players called the PFAs, that's pension fund administrators. Tell us what they do.
So these are like, very almost like the most important key or players in the pension sector. And what they do essentially is they pool funds. So in Nigeria, for example, employers and employees contribute a sum of 18% of your gross income to pensions. And this is basically collected by the pension fund administrators. So basically the different pension fund administrators, they pool these funds, they they credit your retirement savings accounts. Those are RSAs by individuals are basically set up by these pension fund administrators, and then they credit these accounts every month or as often as employers basically remit the salaries or the pension contributions. So they pull these funds together, they invest the funds as well. So it's not enough to just save. We all know that inflation can easily erode savings if you're just kept like that. So what the pension fund administrators do is they basically invest this in what is likely to sustain the real value of these funds. So it's not, I mean, if you pay attention to your pension and retirement savings accounts, what you'd see is more often than not, value actually increases beyond the contributions. You see it actually also increase in terms of value, and that comes from what the PFAs actually invest in. So they credit your account every month or as often as the contributions are made, and they actually invest these funds so that the value of the real value, not just the actual nominal value of your pensions, increase over time.
Speaking about investment, what is the scope of investments that pension funds can participate in?
So in Nigeria, Nigeria's pension fund climate is very, very, very risk averse. Like it's very
Oof.
safe. So the Nigerian Pension Commission, that's PENCOM, they are very big on preserving the actual pensions rather than growing it, right? So for them, the focus is preservation and liquidity, like so as often as possible. And it makes a lot of sense, right? Because we've all heard stories of like people back in the day not being able to remit or recoup their pensions for whatever reason. So the pension fund or the pension act is very conservative, and the reason is just so that whenever people retire, it's better to get. I mean, there's this saying that return of investments is better than return on investment. So as much as possible, people
Nice.
their money back. So that's the first priority. Ensure that people can actually get their money back, regardless of whether inflation erodes the value or not. So if someone remits or contributes 50,000 naira at the end of their work period, at the end of their years, when they retire, that 50,000 naira must still be available for them. Now, that's the first focus. So as a result of that, we find a situation where over 70% of our pensions are actually invested in government securities. So government securities, because I mean they are safe, right? So 60 to 80% are invested in like government bonds and everything. 50 to 55 to 20% are invested in equities, so like the capital markets, and corporate bonds around 25%, and then private equity and alternative assets like real estate take that 5%. So the 5% is what is being adjusted now. As you can see, the government takes the majority. In fact, at the moment, based on I think Q1 values, 69% of the pension fund pond pool, sorry, pension fund pool in Nigeria is currently invested in government securities. So that's government bonds, treasury bills. That's where most of the money is going to. So yeah, I think that's the breakdown. The majority go to bonds, 60 to 80%, then equities is around 5 to 20%, then corporate bonds, and then alternative assets and private equity take 5%.
I do understand the safety that people want, but with the inflation especially, I think it would be great to expand, you know, it's because if you contributed 50,000 2 years, 3 years, in fact, earlier this year, it's not same. But anyways, now with the news of the scope of investment being expanded, what are the risks associated with the expansion? I mean, other than not getting your money back.
So it's unlikely that you will not get your money back. Again, like I said, Pencom is very, 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 very strict. So even if so at the moment they're trying to move that 5% that goes to private equity and real estate, but these are like high return investments, right? So high risk, high return, right? If you invest
Yeah.
in private equity, essentially is giving people money to invest in high growth companies or potentially high growth companies. But private equity is usually pretty it's safer than venture capital, for example. But essentially they invest in companies, right? And investing in companies is more likely to get you, so companies are more aggressive with returns on investments because they have shareholders, they have people who have basically staked their money, and they're more focused on making a profit, right? Government securities are not focused on making a profit. They just want to, I mean, these funds are basically given to invest in things, invest in the government and basically sustain the government. So they're more likely to give you funds. But the primary risk that we see is, you know, these are high risk investments. They could fail, right? You could invest in a company and the company does not succeed and the company falls out, the company declares bankruptcy. But like I said before, high risk, high returns. Apart from even investing in private equity, another thing that is being tweaked is investment in infrastructure. At the moment, infrastructure and private equity contribute about 1% respectively. So I think private equity is 1.1, maybe infrastructure is like 0.7 or something. They're very, very, very conservative. Maybe real estate is around like 1.1%, right? So these are very small contributions, or they contribute very little to pension funds, but these also are high return investments, right? Across the world we see cases of pension funds. For example, the Canada Pension Fund Investments Company or something, they contribute, they invest aggressively across the world. They own a portion of Heathrow airports, they own toll roads in Latin America. They are very aggressive with their investment, and as a result, they return very significant monies to their to the people who contribute pensions in Canada, right? So that's what we're expecting. I mean, it's high risk, but it also contributes or guarantees in a form high returns as well.
Does this have any impact on the PFAs?
Oh, it does. So PFAs are the ones who decide what to invest in, right? Within the confines of PENCOM, right? So they decide what to invest in, but PENCOM basically has strict rules beyond just saying, oh, you can only invest this portion. There are even strict rules with regards to the kind of companies that are invested in. So it's not just enough to say, okay, now you can invest in um, um, whatever. You can invest in private equity more, you can invest in infrastructure more. The kind of infrastructure, the companies that are involved, the kind of companies that are involved in are also highly scrutinized by PENCOM. So for pension fund administrators, this means that the fund in there that they manage, right? The fund, the assets under their own management are now more, they can be more flexible, they can invest more in infrastructure, they can invest more in private equity. They can earn a lot more for their customers. And PFAs, basically, they are your representatives in the market, and they're different companies, right? So if a PFA is able to return higher because they have more flexibility, they're able to get more people to basically save with them, right? They get more retirement savings accounts domiciled in their companies versus others. So it just gives them more room to be more competitive, and I guess to get more returns for their investments and that of their clients.
And on a final note, in few words, what does this mean for, I mean, this entire news? What does it mean for everyday Nigerians? What should they take note of?
I think the main thing is that your pensions can return higher investments or higher returns for you now, really. I guess it boils down to actually saving with the right PFAs, right? Looking for the PFAs that are likely to guarantee more returns. But more importantly, one of the big things here is that infrastructure, it also allows them to invest more in infrastructure, right? So imagine walking on a road and seeing that the road is was funded by your pensions, right? It gives you a sense of fulfillment, I guess. So beyond the pension actually guaranteeing investments, return on investments at the end of your retirement or when you retire, it also impacts you today, right? It guarantees safer roads, better roads, also better companies. The company you work for might actually be funded by your PFAs. And I mean, so you're earning a salary today from your pensions and in the future. So it gives that sense of fulfillment to Nigerians. But one thing that we should actually pay attention to is understanding most PFAs actually publish their books and tell you what they invest in and how much returns they make. So it's up to you to actually decide what PFA is actually guaranteeing better returns and who should I put my money with. So that's basically what we should take note of. But I think this is very, very good developments. We can't wait to see actually what the ban will be now. If they're increasing it beyond 5%, how much more? And yeah, I'm looking forward to, I guess, my pensions returning better investments for me in the future.
It really will be lovely if, the things that you mentioned, the ideal could be
Yeah.
executed in Nigeria. The idea of it is absolutely warm. I'll take this message as we wrap it up on Business Express this morning from Tayo, who says, government don't want competitions from equities and problem with pension administration when today's economic reality isn't guaranteed. I hope the new PENCOM chairman takes this and more into consideration. It's like Oluwaseun has more than 50K. Is it available for investment? All right. Unfortunately, we need to go. I'm so sorry, Gilbert. Musa, I'm sorry, we cannot take your message. Oh, can you do it in very few words? He says, how can SMEs create pension schemes that is sustainable in the long term? People who run their own business. Very few words.
They should just register with, they should inform their employees about pension funds. All they need to do is just, for the employers, they contribute 10% while the employee contributes 8%. I think education is the main thing. Tell the employees how much of their salaries will be going to pensions, get pension fund administrators to actually remit this money. So your own responsibility is just plugging the employee to pension fund administrators and basically getting them to just understand what it means. It's sustainable if you understand. It's a portion of their salaries anyway. So with pension fund administrators, they can then grow it, and yeah, I think that's the best way, really. It's not too complex.
You see that part about remitting it? Actually, that is sacrosanct. Very important.
Yeah,
That's a talk for another day. Thank you for your time, Gbemi. It's always lovely to have you. And you can find Gbemi Alonge on all socials. You can also go back to this because we've been streaming live on YouTube. So hashtag Business Express 981, and you find the video about pensions. You can find it and share with your family and friends, and watch it all over again. Smooth Breakfast continues right here on Smooth 98.1. My name is Oluwaseun.
Business Express. To you by
Thank you. Sorry, we're out of time. I have to be finished. Thanks a lot.
With critical focus on the Nigerian.
So Friday?
We see the bigger picture.
Friday.